Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel and welcome back to my Dune Awakening content. Today I want to talk to you about something that happened on the 19th of June that was very cool, and it had a lot of great information in it about Dune Awakening and what's coming down the pipeline in the near future. The developers on Reddit had what they called an AMA, which stands for Ask Me Anything. And in that, they shared a lot of information about the game. And I want to talk to you about that because I want to make sure you don't miss it. Because there was a lot of interesting little tidbits in there. If you're following the game and you're playing like I am every single day and you're still loving it, you want to know what's going on with the game and what's coming down the line, because there was a lot of really neat things in there that we need to know about so that we can kind of plan how we are going to, have our gameplay go in the future based on some of the things they're saying they're going to do. So let's get right into it, and I'm going to switch over to the Reddit AMA page right now, and we'll kind of go through it as I find the interesting questions that I've kind of got lined out. So first, let's look at who was participating in this AMA on the 19th. It was Joel Bylos, the creative director, Scott Jr., the executive producer, Villar Summerbach, the senior game director, and Ole Andres, the lead producer. So these were the members from Funcom that were actually participating. So we start out with some of the pretty basic questions like, what quality life plans do you have in the pipeline? What are the PVE plans for the near future? They said they have an update in testing that contains a lot of quality of life updates, and we'll get into a lot of those here in just a little bit, talking about naming chests and all those kind of goodies. For PVE plans for the future, each of our major updates will always continue with new story content and new PVE content. So nothing really groundbreaking there. We already knew that kind of a plan. Then this player asked, do you plan to add daily and weekly contracts for PVE or solo players? They said currently they have the land thread to offer weekly content for players to engage with. Tasks being too hard and getting locked, they've heard the feedback and they're going to make improvements to the land thread, because that's something that a lot of players are concerned about the tasks getting locked too early, and then they've wasted their effort that they put into it up until the point that it got locked and they couldn't participate anymore. And then they also say, in addition, we'll be releasing more PvE content with each major update, and we'll have more dynamic encounters in the game that will offer variety and new content for you to discover as you're exploring Arrakis. So pretty standard answer there. I guess the one new thing was more dynamic encounters. Not really sure what they mean by that, but that's an interesting statement. So this was actually a hot topic asked many times during the AMA, and it revolved around scout thopters and rockets, because they have been a huge issue for a lot of people. That's pretty much the meta right now, is scout thopters with rockets. People are asking things like, are you entertaining the idea to make scout ornithopters weaponless? What are your goals regarding change to the PvP in the deep desert? They said, as for PvP, we're currently formulating a plan. We want to make players make meaningful decisions about what they bring with them and how they outfit their vehicles. Once players have engaged in PvP, we want the experience to be reliable, responsive, and clearly understood. That determines how PvP as a whole feels and how players make their moment-to-moment decisions in a fight. To ensure a more reliable experience in ground combat, we are continuing to address issues with movement, desyncs, and rubber banding, as well as ability activation reliability. So they didn't really answer the question that the people were asking. They're kind of dancing around the subject, but I think we'll get an answer here in just a little bit. The next one, will you be looking at a change so we can name storage containers? Please, for my sanity. Yes, this is something that I need before I lose my freaking mind. Give me the ability to name storage containers. Oh my God, it's not that hard. I don't know who is in charge of this system. Couldn't see that from the onset, but whatever. I think I need to be working for Funcom, because I could surely develop a lot more engaging system than what I'm having to interact with now. But that aside, they said definitely that is on the list of changes we want to make to improve base resource management. can't commit to exactly when this is coming, but we understand the difficulty in managing huge bases with tons of storage containers. And I hope that they truly do understand this. I'm not sure they really do, honestly, because they didn't put it in with release, and it was something that was so critical that it's just caused us fits. It's basically turned Dune Awakening into an inventory management simulator game, and that's not what I signed up for. So, Funcom, I need you to get on this right away. Very much so. Containers and vehicles, it's annoying when you have 12 in the base and you want to put material into one directly from the chest. He's basically saying, can you please allow us to name vehicles? Vehicle naming is also something that will be coming to help out with management. This will appear on the inventory drop down in the base. You know which vehicle you're taking resources from. Thank God. This is another thing that we need more than anything, because right now I'm having to put like one dart in a vehicle or one piece of an item in a vehicle so that I can know which one I'm dealing with when I'm looking in the inventory, and that's just ridiculous. I shouldn't have to go through all that. So I need this like stat. Funcom, please. Another player asked, will you change the land thread so that players can continue to contribute to it after it has been claimed? Our current plan is to allow your contributions to stack week after week so that small groups and solos can work towards larger rewards over time, and then adding more tiers of rewards as well as new activity drivers in the land strat. So that's kind of interesting. Saying that they're basically going to allow them to continue on after they've already been completed so that small groups and solo players can continue to earn those rewards. So that's pretty interesting. Not really sure how that works out in practice with the current development that they have on the land thread, but hey, I'm interested to see. I'm going to kind of pick apart this question and the coming questions so that we can kind of get on with it just a little bit. But this guy said, also, can we get more dungeons within the deep desert with a variety of bosses and targeted loot farm systems where players can select the loot they want to drop? I know exactly how they're going to answer this, because this is completely against the design of the randomness of the deep desert. They say, we will continue to add dungeons, but we will not add targeted loot systems, as the entire point of the deep desert is the randomization and re-exploration loop, and this would work entirely against that. So I can't even really understand why somebody would ask that question, because it's pretty obvious that this is what they're designing with, and they're not going to change it, so that's kind of a dumb question. But anyway, let's see. Let's move on. This is really a cool question for all the builders out there. It says, are there plans to make building easier, like being able to replace one floor for another without having to move everything and destroy the current floor? So he said that's something that they had in Conan Exiles, and it'd be great to see here. This is kind of interesting to me because I like this idea of what they've answered. It said, yes, we're planning to add the option to replace one piece with another without having to destroy it first. That would be very great. Because when I'm building, a lot of times I'll build like 20 or 30 pieces of a certain build style, and I'll be like, I don't really like the way that looks. I want to change it to a different build style, and I have to go back and delete them all just to do it. If I could just add the piece I want to add over the top of the one that's already there and just change it without having to delete it first, that would be amazing. So that would be one very good quality of life fix that I would love to see happen. This one's also a really neat one for builders out there. It says, will we ever be able to stack storage boxes? And they're saying there's ways to do this already using half walls to create shelves. We are continuously looking into ways to improve quality of life, and stacking storage boxes is on that list. Now, I don't think they really meant it's on the list to come, or it's on the list to investigate to see if that's something they want to do. So they weren't really clear with that. But that's interesting that they're looking at it, because that would be nice for sure. So this guy right here lumped a lot of questions into one post, which is a pretty efficient way to do it. So I get why he did it, but there was a lot here. So I'm not really going to read through everything, but they did go ahead and answer a lot of his questions. So I want to look at their answers. They said a lot to address here, so they'll try to keep their answers short. What are your plans to improve PvP? We have a lot of plans to address your points about respawn times and revives. Full loot is a decree that can be attained via the land thread. There are control points in the deep desert already. We have no plans to reduce the deep desert size, so that's interesting. As we work on the game, we will continue to work on making PvP more rewarding. Yeah. Can we consolidate sietches and servers to see people more frequently for PvE and PvP encounters? They're saying they'll do that when they feel it's necessary. They're never going to, people that ask this question, you need to understand that they're never going to tell you ahead of time that this is going to happen, because it's not a popular decision for a company to have to make. So they're definitely not going to punch themselves in the eye and give themselves a black eye before it's time. So people need to quit asking this question. It's dumb. Can the in-game notifications have the time associated with player or server time? Yes, this is being improved. That would be welcome. When are they going to fix the classes quests? There's a lot of class quests that are just kind of broken and just hard to do because they're impossible to figure out where you're supposed to go. There needs some love on this kind of thing, the PvE questing. It really does, because a lot of it is very confusing. I know they want some exploration to be involved in playing the game, but sometimes it's just ridiculous when you are forced to have to go to YouTube, or forced to have to ask everybody in your guild if anybody knows how to find a certain place or, point of interest so that you can get it done. It's just ridiculous. Can we have a deposit all and extract all button for water storages? And they said they're working on that. That'll be nice. Can we increase the party size or remove friendly fire? They're never going to do this, removing friendly fire, because it's all about their vision about how they're going to help keep Zergs down in the deep desert when nobody knows who's who. That makes the battle so chaotic that it makes organization very hard, and that's kind of their mechanic that they're building around. They said, no, this is a party size we've chosen for the game. Our encounters in PvE are balanced towards this. Changing it is not in the plans. We also expect guilds to coordinate and work together. Friendly fire is there to ensure that they do. They look at changing the map filters to make them better. Can the radar be made dynamic as well? They're saying no, this is not planned and is very expensive to implement and change. I don't know why they say this, because I don't understand what goes into it, but that's sad to hear them say, because I wish that top HUD bar was a little bit more dynamic and easier to interpret the points. Like when you mouse over, could they please tell what they are? That gets a little old sometimes. Can we make it easier to distinguish between players and NPC? No. Can we have an option to skip all dialogue and animations? Absolutely not. Can we remove that mini-map game between worlds? No. I don't understand what he's saying about mini-map game between worlds. Can you make the map feature be able to toggle the map across the worlds and see the party, or just toggle between worlds instead of restricting the map only to the player location? No, we have no plans to implement this. This would add a lot of server overhead, and it's absolutely not worth it. So, okay. So constantly over and over in the AMA, we keep seeing this question. How do you plan on fixing the PvP balance at the moment? And it's always in regards to the scout ornithopters, because that's what a lot of people feel is one of the main problems. Surely the scout shouldn't have offensive capabilities as a balance. And they're saying things they're thinking about doing. Equipping a scout with rocket pods reduces the overall maneuverability and max speed. This would help solidify this module selection as a desire to engage in combat and balance it versus other combat-focused vehicles. I think this is a good idea, honestly. If I'm going in there with an ornithopter built for speed and I'm trying to gather, I should be faster than the ornithopter that's carrying a heavy load of rockets that's designed to shoot me down. That's just fact. They should be a lot slower and a lot less maneuverable to offset and balance the thrill of the chase. You need to be able to have a chance to get away. That's just not fair to go in there with the same speed as someone with rockets. That was dumb from the beginning, and they need to change that. Scout ornithopter rockets cost slightly more heat to fire, limiting its combat usefulness relevant to the assault. Scout Orthopter thrusters to provide a bonus to the maximum speed at the Orthopter at all times, even when gliding. This would be a great change as well, too, because, like I said, if I take an Orthopter in there that's built for speed, because I want a rat, I want to get in and I want to get out, and I don't want to engage in combat. The ones that are wanting to engage in combat have the ability to fight me, but I don't really have the tools in my chest to be able to get away, because the ones that are coming after me are just as fast as me. So give me this and make it so that the thrusters don't work if rocket pods are on there, something like that. That would be a lot better situation all the way around, pretty much for everybody, I think. One of these questions right here is talking about sand walking, and I'm also partial to this because that's actually the name of my guild, the Sand Walkers. I thought that was pretty cool. Acronym SWG. For some of you gaming nerds out there, you might know what that's in reference to, but walking on the sand without rhythm was something really cool about the movies, and I would like to see it added in the game, and they have said we will do walking without rhythm, so that's really cool to hear that it's coming. I've seen this question multiple times. Will you add an option for duels? Yes, we're planning to add the possibility to duel. That's super cool, and that's cool for people that want to train in PvP as well. That will give them the ability to fight their friends, hopefully, so that they can train. And that's going to be really super good to have in the game. I hope they add that. This guy says, please, can we have a door tall enough so that the buggy with a mining laser can go through it? Sorry, that was my alarm going off telling me that my respec is available. Sweet. Can't wait to get in game and do that. But the buggy going through doors, yeah, that's something they need to work on seriously, because I have struggled with this a lot, and you basically have to make a pentashield. And if you don't want to make a pentashield, for various reasons, why can't we have a door that the buggy can drive through? I mean, with the laser on it, give me a break. This is something that should have been designed at the start and not us having to beg for it later. So that was an interesting question. I'm glad to see them say that they don't have it on the roadmap currently, but it's a good idea. We'll see what we can do. So hopefully if they think it's a good idea, that means they'll do something about it, because it is an issue. So this is a question that really got me whenever I did the 8th trial, the last trial. It says, why isn't the final trial instanced like all the rest? It results in a queue of players lining up, dying of thirst. Players are then pushed to rush through a big story so that their peers can get in, and you basically have to skip everything and just hurry, 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 and it's not fun. I wanted that to be the climax of the story for me and be able to enjoy it, but I felt like I was rushed the whole time I was in there doing it, because I had players that were waiting behind me wanting to get in, and I just really don't understand the decision behind that. They said it's mostly due to technical and time limitations. We fully understand that this is not optimal, and we'll look at improving this in the future. Well, that's great. I wish you would have had it improved at the start, though, because it kind of ruined my experience with the story. I'm not going to lie, and now I can't go back and do it again. So, yeah, it's just not a good experience. Another question about deposit all water, because a lot of people are getting tired of the clicking game that goes on when you walk up to a deal and try to fill it or remove from it. And they said, absolutely. Glad to tell you that the deposit all water option is coming. So fingers crossed. This one said, curious if there will be more boss fights or raids. I understand why they're asking that, because that's a coordinated thing that could be really cool for guilds to do together in a PvE area. They said they'll continue to evolve their PvE content, including adding boss encounters as part of future dungeons. So that's interesting to see them say they're working on it. We kind of always knew that, but it's just nice to see them cement it. This one was something that I've encountered, and it's kind of aggravating, especially if you're a min-maxing completist like me. You have to get every shred of anything you can get out of the game. And it said, right now, respecking seems to remove your starting skill, but does not refund the skill point. So if you respec at level 150, you only get 149 skill points back. They said definitely a bug. It will be fixed in the upcoming patch. This player asked, will there be a roadmap published soon, like other games, which show which kind of quality life plans there will be? They said, yes, they intend to keep you in the loop on what's coming, and we will share our mid to long-term plans soon. However, they may not take the form of a static roadmap asset. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing right now with breaking down this Reddit AMA and pulling out all the relevant developer posts to kind of throw them out there to you so you can see them, because we don't have a long-term roadmap with quality of life plans that are, in the pipeline to do. So this is about the best we can do, and that's why I'm really trying to do this for you, because it's all we got, basically. So this one was one of the most interesting ones from the AMA, in my opinion. The quality of life stuff is great, but this was a good question. It says, are there plans for map expansion? And the player is not saying there's an issue with the map size. The map is quite big, but was just curious if there are going to be any future map expanded. And they said, we have many plans to expand the game with additional maps in the future, and the overland map is one of our vehicles to do so. The Dune universe has a lot of interesting locations and worlds to explore, and we're looking forward to continuing to build on top of the foundation that we already have. So that's very cool. They're saying worlds, they're saying locations, they're saying putting stuff on the overland map. So that sounds like we have a ton of content coming. And if you watch my channel, you've seen some of the videos I've made in the past about their 10-year plan for the game and all that kind of stuff, and my thoughts on the possibilities of getting to go to other worlds and all that. It's going to happen. It's going to happen at some point. So if you love Dune and you love the lore and you love this game, just hang on, because in the future we're going to have some of the most awesomest abilities to go to other planets, I feel, which is going to open up so many more gameplay options. So I just cannot wait for that stuff. I love this game. Oh my God. And this question right here pretty much sums up a lot of the people's issues with the game right now. It says, is there going to be a PVE only option for people to farm in-game materials, or is it always going to be something you gate behind PvP? I could go on a 2-hour long rant about this whole thing, because I'm just not happy with the way that the in-game materials are gated in the PvP content area. I'm not cool with that. I get it that people want a PvP experience, and my views may not coincide with your views, but I do not want to progress through tiers 1 through 5 and then get locked and can't go any farther if I don't want to fight for those materials. I should be able to get those materials, and the development team that says, oh, you can just buy it on the auction house, there'll always be that option, that is the biggest bunch of crap. And they know this when it comes out of their mouth, because they know as well as we do that, for one, nobody's selling that stuff because they will not turn loose of it because it's too valuable. 2, when they do sell it, it's too expensive and nobody can afford it. So I don't accept that as an answer. They keep saying that, and it's just not what we want to hear, because it's not right. And then they keep saying, oh, well, the land strat is our goal for the in-game PvE. Well, that's okay and well and good, but that does not get me the resources I need, okay? I need the titanium, the strontium. I need that stuff, and I can't get it. So I'm really frustrated with this. But here's what they say again about their goal, which they're going to eventually have to change their goals with this design decision. It's just an eventuality. It's going to happen, because the PvE players are the ones that are keeping the lights on at Funcom with this game. And if they don't start, catering to them more in this situation with these materials, they're going to lose a lot of their player base, and they'll have to eventually backtrack on this at some point. All games do. Our plan for the land strat to be the in-game PVE content, so we will continue to make adjustments until both you and we are happy with it. It should feel rewarding for both solo and guild players and offer personal rewards in addition to faction-wide maps. In addition, we will have new PVE maps and content in the future that will offer alternative ways to progress past the gear that's available in the Haga Basin. That's great, but we need resources, Scott. We need resources. We need the titanium and the strontium that we can't get to. That's what we need, okay? We can make the gear if we can get the resources. Give us the resources and don't cause us to have to do a game mechanic that we don't want to do to have to get it. I get it, what you're trying to decide, but I'm never going to agree with you on this. This question is constantly asked because it's a major issue with the Landsrad system. It says Landsrad is broken. Period. I completely agree with you. Tiles being claimed within seconds of going live. Worlds are dominated by large guilds and heavily one-sided on the faction front, with no room to even compete. It is a problem, seriously. And they keep saying they're looking at it, but I'm wondering, do they really understand how big of a problem it is? Because I've seen it myself. I've found tiles that I wanted to compete in, and I thought, oh man, this is going to be fun as a PvE player. I'm going to get to do this one, and I'm going to get some sweet rewards, and it's done. Before I can even do anything, it's completed. And that's not fair. That's ridiculous. They need to fix that. It's the biggest issue with Landsrad, honestly, and it's got to get fixed. Because if people can't do the things you're saying that they have to do to compete in the in-game PvE content, but yet you got it designed to where they can't, then how does that work? It doesn't. It needs fixed. This guy asks a cool question. Are there any plans for new tools like an elevator? That's really cool. I like the idea of that. Having a platform elevator that you could drive your buggy on and then lift it up into your base, that would be so cool. I like that idea. They said we had plans for suspensor elevators in the Rift to allow people to quickly get out of it with ground vehicles, but had to cut the feature from the launch scope. I'll check with the building team to see if this is something we can add to player bases in a future update. That's cool. I hope they really focus on that, because that would be super cool. I want that so bad, Funcom. Come on. So as you may know, I'm pretty much skipping over a lot of the story type questions and those things. I'm focusing on quality of life, new features coming down the road, and the deep desert and PvE content. That's basically what I'm trying to focus on. This is a good question. I know it gets asked a lot, but they kind of give us one answer here that kind of crosses something out that people have always thought was a good option. Is the third faction coming to the game whose purpose was previously described as to help keep the balance? And then he says, is it going to be House Corino? That's a good guess, yes, based on the lore and stuff. But they said it is not House Corino. It is coming. So you can cross House Corino off your list if that's somebody you was thinking might be the third faction. Just take it out of your list, because he just basically said right here it is not them. And it is still coming. But they need to hurry up, because that third faction they keep touting as being the balancing mechanic between the houses and the Landsrad and stuff. And the Landsrad is broke. It needs help. So that third faction could be an answer. They need to hurry up and get it in there. I don't know why they're waiting. This guy says something about elevators again. Suspensor elevators win. Easy to implementing, will change base building forever. Scott says likely to happen. So that's there we go with the elevator question again. Super cool. I'm glad to see that. I'm excited. Another person asked the question about, do you plan to enable character transfer to a different server or siege, mainly to skip the main story and keep the level? Okay. They said between sieges is coming soon, so that means on the same world map you can travel to other servers and move your character to them permanently, I would hope. It says coming soon with full visiting with building rights. So, I mean, that's kind of a confusing thing, because if you're going to allow people to transfer their character to a different server, then they obviously need to have building rights on the new server they go to. But I guess he's just, trying to assuage their fears. And then he says between worlds will likely be possible in the future, but not in the short term. So that's cool that they're actually thinking about doing this, because there could be situations where, you find groups out in the community that are saying, hey, we're having a great time on this server or on this world map, and yours is dead. You may entertain the idea of moving at some point, and that's cool that we'll eventually get that option. I'm all about choice. Give me choice on how I play. My time is important. My time is the most critical resource I have in my life. Give me choice on how I spend it, please, Funcom. Okay, this is a very good question. This is something that's near and dear to my heart, and that's making it easier to reach the bank and the Chome exchange. Right now, I get it. The way they've designed the social hubs, they want people there. They want them to feel alive. I get that. But having to go there to do every single thing, like even just check to see if you've sold something, is kind of ridiculous. I mean, give me the ability to get an in-game mail so that I can get my auction sales mailed to me so I don't have to run to the exchange every 15 minutes just to check on my auctions to see if I've finally sold something. Make it a little bit more friendly, because right now one of the things that's causing people to not do it is they're crashing between coming back from the world map and losing everything. So how is that fun when you have to go to these places and you're constantly in risk of dying by doing so? Make it more easy. I mean, give me the ability to look at stuff, from in my base without having to always run to the exchange. There's some balancing that needs to be done there. They said we will look into adding some additional convenience to these features, but it's important for us to have certain features that require you to travel to the social hubs. I get that. I get it, but it still needs to be looked at, because right now it's just too restrictive and it causes people to not even participate. You want the Chome exchange to be active and vibrant, you've got to open the gates to allow people to get there more easy. I mean, I can't say it any more clear than that. Requiring you to go out of your way to travel on this weird, broken world map is just too much to ask. You need to make it easier. And then they talked about vehicle insurance. As for vehicle insurance, we don't want losing your vehicle to be a catastrophic setback, so we're looking into ways to ease the loss. Getting eaten by a sandworm will always come with a hefty cost, though. So some vehicle insurance ideas, those are cool. I'm glad to see that, because as you know, when you lose, a tier 5, tier 6 vehicle, it's a hefty replacement cost. And while I get it that should be risk and reward, sometimes it just doesn't feel good to have to go through that whole process again. So yeah, especially when you become so dependent on flight once you finally achieve it. Oh my God. And then they say again, we want to send players to the social hubs, but we are considering ways to make it more accessible still. Yes, please. So they're reiterating the fact that I guess they do understand that players are just not participating in the Chome exchange because it's such a pain to have to constantly go there to do the things you need to do. I mean, make it 1,000,000 Solari to be able to buy a terminal to put in your base, and I will grind for that. Give me a break. So this is a question that I was waiting on to come up, because this is something that I would wish for. Probably top 3 features that I would wish for in this game is a mini map. I mean, I just want it. I'm so used to that in other games, and I get it that they want this to be all about exploration, but it's just so laborious to have to constantly open up your map every 5 seconds just to get your bearings on where you're at. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's too laborious. They're saying no. We actually had one for a while, and I asked the team to remove it. Many maps draw the eye away from the world and distract from the experience. Instead, we moved the design to a more intentional focus on world elements, scanning to have resources show in 3D space or hazards. Be something that you plan your route around. Vehicle scanners will be your friend, but just also learning to recognize it visually would be of great help. So I understand that it is the design directive. I get it, but it's just quality of life. It, to me, trumps everything. I need quality of life because I'm going to be playing this game for 10 years. I need quality of life to help me feel like my game time is meaningful and that I'm not just running around in circles, because there's been so many times when I've opened up my map to get my bearings and realize I'm going in the wrong direction. And it's just something that's so easy to do. And a mini map would help so much. Oh my God, please give us a mini map, Jesus. Here's a good question about rendering distance on vehicles in the deep desert. They said, are there any plans to increase rendering distance for vehicles? Vehicles pop in at around 500 meters, which makes it very difficult to react in time sometimes. They said, we hear you, and that is something we're actively investigating internally. I'm sure this comes with a whole big bag of server load issues, but whenever you increase view distance, you're always going to tax the systems. But it kind of needs to be addressed because, as this person is talking about, it does make it very difficult to react in time whenever you all of a sudden see a group pop in on your screen and you've got 6 or 7 of them there and you're all alone. You've got to hurry up and turn it around, boys, and get the F out of there. And sometimes it is very difficult to get yourself positioned and gliding again, and they're on you. So it makes it very difficult, and it really needs to be increased just a little bit. I mean, we just need a little love on that. Thank you. 700 meters maybe would be great. This is another question about, can we get a top-down building view? I wish they would do something like this, about at least allow us to zoom out a little bit more when we're trying to place our FIVE consoles, whatever they're called. That's very difficult to try to see where your boundaries are going to end up. And it's very difficult for those people that want to make that perfect base to get things right. I've had to pick up and place my FIVE console 100 times sometimes to get it just right. And this could totally be solved if we could just use the mouse wheel when we're in build mode and zoom out a little bit more. Just give me another 100 or 2 meters to be able to see where my build zone is in relation to where I want it to be. And you could solve me so much frustration. Oh my God. Especially when you've halfway built your base and you realize you screwed up, and now if you can't live with it, you're going to have to tear it all down and start over. That is something that's happened to me multiple times, and I'm telling you, I've had to walk away from the screen when that happens because it frustrates me so bad, especially when I put 5 or 6 hours into starting a build, and then I realize when I get to the other edge that I'm hitting the border zone and I can't build how I want it. If I could have just seen where I can place my build zone just a little bit better, give me a bird's eye view or something, that would have been solved. So that's something I hope they'll do. They said they currently have no plans to add this. Please reconsider this option, Funcom. It's that critical. I mean, it's something that could really help builders be a lot happier. This was a question that I figured would get asked sooner or later because this is an issue that kind of, sucks but doesn't suck but does suck in a way. I don't know how to describe it, but people building bases to block off ground roads between resource areas like in the Vermilius Gap, especially quest entrances would be nice. This is something that needs to be tweaked just a little bit, and they've kind of told us their stance on this. It said this one's hard to tackle in a way that makes everyone happy. There is a limited amount of buildable space in the game, so we don't want to add building blockers all over the map. We do want to make sure that you can access content and points of interest that are unique and or required for progression, so we have tried to ensure that there's always a viable path to get to trade posts, faction bases, and story content locations. If we've missed anything, let us know. But yes, I do understand why the poster is asking this, because there are times, especially when you're on your buggy and you come up to a path you wanted to take because there's good farming there, and all of a sudden you run into a base that's got the road blocked off. A lot of players will be the nice guy and they'll build a path through, or they'll build up to where you can drive under, or they'll build a ramp or something cool. But a lot of people just want to block it off just to block it off because they can. And it's not really cool when you're in a buggy or you're on a bike. If you have flight, it's no big deal. If you're on foot, it's no big deal. You just crawl over it or sugar wire claw over it. But if you're on a buggy and you've been on a mining run and you now have your inventory 3/4 of the way full, you can't just disassemble your buggy and run around and put it back out. You can't empty your inventory to do something like that. So it's not really, you just kind of hit a wall if you're on your buggy, and it's not fun. I get it why players like to do this, because it's fun for them, some, to do this kind of thing, but overall for general game, happiness, I don't think it's a great idea, and they should always have some little no buildable zone around a path that makes, progression through that area possible somehow. But what do I know? I'm not a game developer. It says, are you planning on adding a faction chat option? That's very interesting. A tradies only chat that the Harkonnen aligned players can't see. Harkonnen only chat that the Atreides line players can't see. That would be very interesting, and I like that idea. They said this is something we'll look into. It's actually a pretty cool idea, and it could really go a lot of different directions, so I hope they explore that. That's a great question. Oh my God, here is one of my favorite questions of the AMA right here. Could you please consider adding a hotkey to change seats in vehicles? The process for changing from the driver's seat to the buggy's cutaway is currently tedious and time consuming. I get you, bro. I get you. It works, and it makes it so that you can do a thing by yourself. It's way better to go on a mining run with somebody manning the laser, but a hotkey would be amazeballs. Oh my God, please give me a hotkey. Thanks. We're really excited about the game and the future of this development. Changing seats on a hotkey will be added to one of the first patches to the game, so it will come in either July or August. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. This is so great, man. I'm so thankful for this. Thank God, Funcom. Thank you so much. God, I love that. I want to just upvote that one right there. Oh my God. So nice. This is a cool question. Will we have dual daggers soon, or the arrival of dual crysknife? So basically dual wielding. And they said they'll add some form of dual wielding, but it will not be possible to mix and match weapons. So that obviously means 2 knives, possibly 2 swords, possibly 2 pistols. I wouldn't really see you being able to do 2 rifles or 2 Vulcans or anything like that, but the ones I mentioned at first, totally, Let me be my hero, Drizzt Do'Urden. That would be so cool. I thought that was an interesting question. This is an issue that I didn't even know players were having, but this person says, is there an ETA on when we're going to be able to get content that's not being delivered from the Ultimate Deluxe upgrades to be fixed on Steam? Many of us are missing licenses in Steam for cosmetics from the wildlife of Arrakis. I didn't know that was a thing, but it obviously is, and they addressed it. He said, I know we had an issue when we first launched due to a setup error in Steam, but that should be resolved. Let me follow up on this, and I'll get you an update and have a community communicate what the plans are. You should have everything you paid for, so we'll get it fixed ASAP. I'm really glad to see them address this and take it seriously, because if players are not getting the content that they paid for, that's just a bad feel, especially when they bought those versions possibly for those items. Please let the players have them. If it's a issue you can fix, you need to get it fixed or make it right in some manner. So I'm glad to see them take this seriously. That's very good. So if this is something you're struggling with, not being able to access your wildlife of Arrakis cosmetics, then hold on. Hopefully they got you. This is a question me and my guild members have discussed many times, is why can't we all travel to the deep desert inside one assault ornithopters? I mean, it has multiple seating for a reason, because it's kind of like a mini transport, personnel carrier. And they said it's currently like this for technical reasons, but we are looking to address this. I hope they get that fixed, because that was one of the coolest things about the assault ornithopter. When I finally got one, I was like, yes, now we can do chauffeur missions and stuff like that. And everybody, whoever's lazy can just ride while somebody else drives and navigates. And not being able to go to the deep desert in them is kind of not fun. I mean, it's kind of takes away the fun of the vehicle. And I really wish they'd fix that. So this question encompasses an idea we talked about quite in depth in this video, where we're talking about easier access to the exchange. They're asking, maybe can we get a craftable terminal in our base or access at trade posts as well? I think that's a good idea. Access at trade posts for sure. I would love to have a terminal in my base, but I know they're never going to do that, because that totally kills the idea of trying to get people to go to the social hub. If you give them a craftable terminal in their base, they'll never leave their base. But then their answer, they said, yes, we will be continuously improving the user experience of our features, including the exchange. And I thought this was a really cool addition to this answer. In our next big patch, we will be adding the option to sell items directly from your vehicle storage for the vehicle you arrived into the social hub with. So that's really cool, because that means now if I want to make a, an all-in-all trip to the exchange and list a bunch of stuff, I don't have to always have it all in my inventory and then run back and forth and try to figure out how to bring the ore I'm trying to sell in and all that kind of stuff. I can have it in my vehicle's inventory, and I guess through a drop-down menu like we do in our base, be able to select items from that vehicle as well. So that is a really cool idea. I'm glad to see they're thinking about doing that. So this is a really cool question. I know a lot of people would like to have an answer to, because they possibly, were in a rush to make their characters to hurry up and get on the servers when the game released. And they may not be happy with how their cosmetics on their character look. It says, are there any plans to implement a way to change how your character looks? They said, yes, this will be added in a future update. The team is already working on it, so expect some news on it soon when we just start discussing our post-launch content releases. So I'm very glad to see that. I'm very glad. I am personally happy with the way my character looks, because I practiced that out beforehand and made my character look a very unique way, because obviously I'm making content and I want you to be able to recognize me from video to video. And I also did that with the blue hair and the blue mutton chops, so that I'm visually identifiable for my players and my guild. Right now, they see me running around and they know, hey, there goes Mirandus, the guild leader, because they can just recognize me on sight because of my unique hair and facial construction. That in a game that has no name tags, that's something that's really critical, and I wanted my guild to be able to identify me easily. And that has really helped. And, also because I wanted a unique look that carried across in all my videos, so that the people that watch my content can, easily identify me as well. So the option to have the change on your cosmetics, though, on your character is really cool, and I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad they're working on that. Kudos, Funcom. Here's some more questions about the exchange. So you just keep seeing them coming up over and over about the exchange and how unfun it is to access it. So it's obvious that players are having an issue with this, so I hope that Funcom is paying attention. They have been saying that they're looking at it, so hopefully they're going to make changes, because it's key. The exchange is not as vibrant and active as it could be if it was more easily accessible. I know that I didn't even go to the exchange for the first week and a half of playing the game, just because it was too hard to deal with getting there. I didn't want to take the time to do it because I was busy doing other stuff. And for me to say that is really wild, because I'm a big economy nerd. So yeah, I'm just saying it needs love. Any plans to add a trade board in the trade posts? Not a trade terminal, but something for people can scroll through and see what's for sale. This would help players find what they want or identify gaps in the market. We're looking at several convenience options for the exchange, and this is one of them. I don't have an ETA to share with you on it, though, but at least they're looking at it, so they're going in the right direction. That's good. This is probably a question that a lot of people have on their mind, because they're used to games like Ark, Conan, where you could host your own servers. It says, what is stopping you from allowing us to host our own servers? I don't understand why it has to be locked behind a rental service. Scott said, our server architecture is complex, and we don't have a simple way to package it for players right now. In addition, releasing the server binaries makes it much easier for hackers and cheaters to exploit vulnerabilities. We'll need to fix both of these problems before we can have players or non-partner hoster renting a server. It also requires a lot of hardware to run all the maps at the same time, and if our map was like Conan Exiles, we would have launched with a standalone version, but right now it would be a small amount of people that have the ability to set up, operate, and have enough hardware to run the server. So they're basically saying it's not really worth the effort because it would just be a small segment of the player base that would be able to even do this thing. I get it. I get why they're saying this. They don't have a single player mode of the game, so I get it. And it's something that a lot of people would like to do, but I really hope that they don't go down this road, because this right here is what I'm worried about. Because I've played games like Ark before, and because the code was so easily accessible, the cheating and the hacking and the botting and stuff like that is just unreal insane. And the duping and all that kind of stuff. And that's because players get access to the code. They're able to figure these things out. I hope they keep it locked behind a wall to where you can't access it, because that will make it so much better for the rest of us that are playing the game and want to play the game and want to have a chance to compete in the market and stuff like that. Whenever you allow this, it just gets out of control so fast, and it's a super bad idea, and I hope they never do it. Please don't do this, Funcom. This is another one of those quality of life issues that would be so nice. Search all containers by item name, show matching containers. That's cool. We need that badly. And then they also ask for a quick unload button. Works like quick deposit, but in reverse. If a buggy's in base, then it moves the contents out of the buggy to containers that already have those type of items. That would be sweet. And the ability to select items to not unload. That would be very cool. I would love to see that. They said search all containers by item name, show matching containers. Search is coming in a future update. No plans for X-ray vision to show matching containers, though. And then the quick unload button, he says it works like quick deposit. It says noted, and we'll consider something like this for a future update. So that's cool. That would be very useful. I would love that. Okay, so this is one of the elephants in the room that I wanted to make sure that I got to before I close the video, because it's going on close to an hour now, and I really don't want it to go very much longer, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it here. But this is a question that so many people are struggling with, so many people are dealing with, and that's the border disconnects. It says, what are you going to do to handle losing your Orthopter when you DC or die in deep desert? I've even seen players lose it on the world map, and I can verify that that's a thing, because I was coming back from the Harko village on the world map, and I was trying to connect to the east side of Haga Basin, and when I did, the game hung up, and I sat there for like 25 minutes waiting for it to load, because I was too scared to Control Alt Delete, get out of game and restart, because I didn't know what would happen. It was the first time it had ever happened to me, and it's not been the last time it's happened, sadly. But finally the game crashed after waiting for like 25 minutes to load, and then it dumped me down in the desert. It said my Orthopter was there with me, but I couldn't see it anywhere. So I'm assuming it was in the sand in the map, and I couldn't get to it. I tried using my tool to collect it, even though I was standing right on top of where it said it was. Then the worm come and ate me, took everything, because I could not get back in my Orthopter because of that crash at the border. Well, man, that sucked, because it was a DC, it was a technical issue, it was not my fault, and I should not have had to have lost everything. My Orthopter said it was there on the map for 2 days before it finally disappeared. And I didn't get any notification saying parts on it were destroyed or anything like that. It just poofed, went away. I kept going back to that place and checking for that, because it was a T5 Orthopter. It was worth trying to recover for sure. And it never would be visible for me. So they need to fix that, because coming back from you make players have to use the world map, which is jank already, and then have them have to go through that when they actually try to do what you're wanting them to do. So they got to fix that. They said this will come in multiple stages. We don't want you to lose your vehicle if you crash or disconnect from the game. In the next hotfix, we have made some improvements so that you will have time to connect and get back in your vehicle. By God, please make it a thing, because if you're going to force me to go to the world map, to go to the social hubs, then I shouldn't have to constantly worry every time I cross the server border to get back into the Hogga Basin map. Am I going to crash and lose everything this time? It's happened to me multiple times, and it just does not feel good. In a future patch, we'll look at other ways to decrease the overall setback when losing a vehicle. We don't want this to be a catastrophic loss, especially for solo players. So hopefully it sounds like they get it and they're working on it. So anyway, today I'm going to call it right there. There are a few more questions, but I've kind of parsed through them and have looked for some of the best ones to answer for this video, because I wanted you to be aware of some of the things that are going on in their minds as far as what they're looking at doing, and just wanted you to know, that there is hope, that there are some really cool features coming, and there are things that they're planning on doing that are going to make the game better. And just hang on. They're coming down the road. So thank you for watching my content today. I really appreciate you being here. If you found this content entertaining or informative in any way and you would like to hear about it when I make more, then think about subscribing and liking this video. I have a milestone that I'm trying to reach of 5,000 subscribers, and I would really appreciate it if you would partner with me in that, in reaching that goal. I plan on making content on Dune for many years, so I'm going to be a guy that's around for you to watch. When all the other big streamers are chasing the latest hotness, I'll be one of those people that are left behind making content on Dune, because this is my space and this is what I love. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate you being here today. I will see you soon in another video about Dune Awakening. Peace!